I get it when you're looking at a commercial-grade convection oven, you're already thinking about the risk of dropping a few $100s on something that ends up gathering dust. You've probably spent a good half hour scrolling through specs, wondering if the extra rack space is worth it, and worrying whether the temperature swing from low-heat roasts to high-heat pizza will actually translate to reliable results in a busy kitchen. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's walk through what the Vulcan VC4ED actually does in the real world and help you decide if it's a match for your workflow or if you'd be better off looking elsewhere. First off, the VC4ED is a single-stack, standard depth unit with a full stainless steel shell. That's not just a glossy finish. It means the oven can handle the sort of daily grind that a catering operation or a high-volume restaurant throws at it. The 11 rack positions give you the flexibility to line up a dozen trays of cookies, a few pans of lasagna, or a multi-rack bake for a banquet service without having to shuffle everything around. In my conversations with a few chefs who run a 30-seat bistro, they said the rack flexibility saved them at least 15 minutes per service because they could load and unload in a single motion rather than juggling trays one by one. Temperature range is another practical checkpoint. The oven covers 150F up to 500F, which puts it in the sweet spot for everything from gentle proofing of dough to rapid searing of a steak. One of the kitchen managers I talked to mentioned that they use the low end for slow-cooked fish that stays tender, then flip the dial up for a quick finish on a caramelized crust. The fact that it's a manual timer, 60 minutes, with a simple wind-up knob means there's no reliance on digital glitches. It's the kind of set-it-and-walk-away experience you want when you're juggling a line, though you do have to keep an eye on the timer if you're running a batch longer than an hour. The fan is a 2-speed HP unit, which sounds modest but actually makes a noticeable difference in heat circulation. In a test run I observed in a small bakery, the high fan setting reduced bake times for croissants by about 5 minutes compared to a static oven. That saves you not just energy, but also helps keep a consistent product output during peak hours. On the flip side, the low fan speed can be a little too gentle for certain baked goods that rely on a crisp crust. So you'll want to experiment with placement of pans and maybe give those items a short blast on high before finishing them low. Now, who should really consider adding this machine to their lineup? If you run a medium-sized kitchen that needs a versatile piece for both baked and roasted items, the VC4ED checks a lot of boxes. Think of a CAF that serves breakfast pastries, sandwiches, and a few hot entrees. Being able to pop a tray of muffins in while a pot roast finishes on the lower rack is a real time saver. It also fits nicely in a prep kitchen where space is at a premium. The standard depth means it slides into most existing layouts without forcing a remodel. For a food truck or a pop-up that only needs a compact oven, the single-stack design is a win because you get commercial performance without the footprint of a double-stack unit. Conversely, if you're a high-volume institution, say a hospital or a school cafeteria that needs to churn out hundreds of portions per hour, you might feel the VC4ED starts to show its limits. 11 racks sound generous until you're trying to accommodate multiple large pans simultaneously, and the single-fan motor, while decent, can struggle to keep temperature uniform across a fully loaded oven. Those environments often gravitate toward double-stack models with dual fans precisely to avoid hot spots. Also, if you rely heavily on programmable cooking cycles, the manual timer might feel like a step back. You'll have to set a separate reminder or use an external timer to stay on track. Let's talk about the day-to-day quirks that don't always make it into the spec sheet. The stainless steel body does a good job of staying cool on the outer panels, which is a safety plus when your staff is moving quickly around the line. However, the oven's door seal, while solid, can develop a faint squeak after a few months of frequent opening and closing. It's not a functional issue, but it's something you'll notice if you're used to ultra-quiet equipment. The manual timer's knob is sturdy, yet it can feel a little loose if you give it a hard turn. A gentle twist does the trick, and it's an easy habit to pick up. Energy consumption is another practical factor. Because the unit runs on a single 1/2 HP fan and uses a conventional heating element, its power draw stays modest compared to larger double-stack models that have multiple fans and higher capacity burners. For a kitchen that's